Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Clabby. I'm the author of A History of Eastport, Passamaquoddy Bay, and Vicinity. The research that I conducted when writing this book has given me some unique insights into the history of Eastport and the surrounding area. And for the next 13 minutes, I'd like to share some of these insights with you. The way that I've organized this presentation is first, I provide an overview of the area that surrounds Eastport, and second, I provide a brief overview of important events in Eastport history. In a follow-on video, I'll take you on a brief walking tour of our historical district. My goal is to provide you with a historical context so you understand what you're looking at when you tour Eastport. Okay, so let's just say that you arrived by boat. That means you likely came from the Bay of Fundy through the Head Harbor Passage, with Campobello on your left and Indian and Deer Islands on your right. When you set foot in Eastport, you'll be standing on our main pier, the Breakwater. Before we tour Eastport, I'd like to direct your attention back across the bay to Campobello Island, New Brunswick. Just to the southwest of the town of Welshpool on Campobello is the summer home of our 32nd president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The Roosevelt Cottage consists of a mere 34 rooms, all decorated and maintained to the 1930s time period. If you have time, definitely take a tour, and if you get lucky, you may be able to attend the Tea with Eleanor or Happy Hour with FDR events. Both are highly informative about the lives of the Roosevelts. But FDR was not the only famous person to live on Campobello Island. Not far from the Roosevelt cottage is Snug Cove, where the American general turned trader Benedict Arnold made his home for a short while after the American Revolution. These three X's out in Passamaquoddy Bay represent great venues for whale watching, or even something pretty scary. 2 years ago, on a whale watch, my sister-in-law saw a great white shark swimming along the Campobello shoreline. This X in the northeast part of Campobello marks the location of the Head Harbor Light Station. It's also a great location for observing whales in the bay while standing on land. Across the bay from Campobello Island is Indian Island. There is evidence that indigenous people settled in the Passamaquoddy Bay area between 7,000 and 3,500 years ago. In 1995, a fully channeled groundstone gouge called an adze was found by a scallop dredger just east of Indian Island. This implement was used to hollow out canoes from logs. When the first European settlers in the Passamaquoddy Bay area, the French, arrived in 1604, they settled on land belonging to the Passamaquoddy people. The Passamaquoddies owned about 3 million acres of land in down East Maine and in what is now New Brunswick. When the French arrived, they likely sailed by and were amazed by Old Sow, the Western Hemisphere's largest tidal whirlpool. They settled across the bay on St. Croix Island. 35 of 79 French settlers died during the harsh winter of 1604-1605. The remaining settlers vacated in the spring. There is a park on the U.S. and Canadian sides of the river dedicated as a memorial to that French settlement. It features statues, plaques, artwork, and a model of the village the settlers had built. Okay, so let's move the discussion to the historical development of Eastport. This section will put Eastport in context, such that on your tour you'll better understand why Eastport is the way it is. Over the years, there have been 8 historical phases of development in Eastport. In the 1760s, Eastport became known as a seasonal fishing town. That fishing town was eventually settled in 1772 and incorporated in 1798. Given Maine's heavy forestation, many Maine towns and cities took to building wooden ships during Maine's golden age of shipbuilding. In addition to fishing, shipbuilding became one of the early industries in Eastport. The American Revolution forced tens of thousands of loyalists out of the United States, with many settling just across the bay into what eventually became New Brunswick. Due to restrictive trade policies, Americans and British North Americans resorted to smuggling. Why smuggling? Think of it this way. An American who paid $5 for a barrel of flour could sell that barrel in British North America for $12. Conversely, British North America had gypsum, sometimes called plaster, used to mediate soil acidity. It could be mined for $2 per ton and sold to Americans for $3 or $4 per ton in Eastport. That plaster could be shipped down the coast and eventually be sold for $7 or more depending upon how far it was shipped. As a government restricted trade hub, it was hard to resist these economics. As for a captured town, during the War of 1812, the British deployed a flotilla of 4 warships and 2 troop transports and additional support vessels to capture Eastport, Maine, which they did on July 11, 1814. At the end of the War of 1812, the ownership of Eastport was disputed, and the British did not return it to the United States until June of 1818, 3 years after the War of 1812 had officially ended. As for thrice burned, Eastport burned to the ground 3 times in its history. If you're wondering what happened to Eastport's wharves and piers that used to line the waterfront, storms and gales eventually wiped out most of them. In the 1870s, the process of smoking and canning sardines had been perfected, but the Franco-Prussian War cut off U.S. supplies of sardines from France. On February 9, 1876, Wolf and Riesling Cannery opened in Eastport, the first U.S. sardine cannery. 18 canneries were ultimately built, and accordingly, Eastport declared itself the sardine capital of the world. And finally, in the mid-1920s, an ocean dam was proposed between the U.S. and Canada, one capable of delivering up to 1 million megawatts of power to Eastport and the surrounding vicinity. British North America had become Canada at that point, and Canada, thankfully, killed the dam. But there were 3 more attempts to build a hydroelectric dam across Passamaquoddy Bay and Cobscook's Bays. All, thank goodness, subsequently failed. Okay, so let's consider Eastport's history as a fishing town. We started as a fishing town, and we still are a fishing town. Check out this 100-pound halibut down near the breakwater. And all summer long, buckets and buckets of mackerel are caught at the breakwater. And we have a very healthy lobster fishery. And a thriving salmon farm. And of course, what's a fishing town without a great big fish story? During its history, Eastport was also a shipbuilding town. One example is C.S. Huston's Shipyard and Marine Railway. We even styled our own ship for Passamaquoddy Bay with the Eastport Pinky. During the course of our history, we also became a trading hub and a smuggling town. When the Loyalists were forced out of the United States at the end of the American Revolution, an interesting trading situation developed. British North Americans were restricted from trading for certain goods due to British government navigation acts and its economic system of mercantilism. And an eventual U.S. embargo in 1807 outlawed trade with the British and British colonies. With all of this government trade restriction, Americans and British North Americans were more than happy to trade illegally with their neighbors across the bay. Eventually, these trade restrictions gave way to reciprocity, and Eastport became the second busiest port in the United States in 1832. Eastport became a captured town during the War of 1812. Prior to the War of 1812, the United States built a series of forts along its coastline. Fort Sullivan became Eastport's fort. But in 1814, the British 102nd Regiment showed up with 571 privates, 84 non-commissioned officers, 26 officers, and 23 musicians. They also had 4 warships, 116 guns, and 909 more men. Fort Sullivan had only 80 men and 4 guns. The contest was over before it started. But was the capture of Fort Sullivan truly a loss? Because the U.S. and Britain both claimed ownership of Eastport, the matter went to arbitration, and it was decided that because the Americans had fortified Eastport, the island belonged to America. So in a way, Fort Sullivan delivered a victory for the people of Eastport. Eastport had 3 major fires in its history, 1839, 1864, and 1886. After the 1886 fire, Eastport finally learned its lesson and rebuilt the city using brick. This was Eastport before the fire of 1835. The 1864 fire brought the same amount of devastation. And these are actual photographs of the 1886 fire. This is the before pic. Notice all the wood buildings. And this is the downtown Bank Square area. This is the after pic. The entire town has been leveled. And wharves burned and were destroyed. And this is a view from Brady Hill looking down at the devastated city. And then came the storms and gales. In 1976, the Groundhog Day gale did catastrophic damage to the wharf area. But eventually, by the 1870s, Eastport thrived and became the sardine capital of the world. And finally, there's a story of Eastport as the Quoddy Dam town. In the mid-1920s through the mid-1930s, there were 4 attempts to dam Passamaquoddy Bay and subsequently Cobscook Bay. This is an historical fiction account of the trials and travails of Dexter and Gertie Cooper and the problems they ran into as they constantly had their dream dashed. And for a more historically accurate account, I highly recommend Moondoggle by Mark Borton. This is a picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt viewing one of the dams that he helped find funding for. This is a picture of someone viewing one of the other dam designs. This model has been lost to posterity. Okay, now that you have a sense of Eastport's history, you may now understand why all the brick buildings have 1887 cornerstones, or why we have a mustard factory, or why we have a shell of a huge canning factory. If you want more on this, my short Eastport walking tour is also available. One last thing, if you want more videos like this, hit the like button. Some ideas I have include a closer look at the Quoddy Dams, a closer look at the Sardine era, and the impact of European arrival on the indigenous people. And I've got a bunch more. Just hit the like button to let me know. Goodbye from Max and I, and thanks for listening.